Thank you so much, Ishita, for such a warm welcome. And I would also want to thank Mr. Vivek Kala, Mr. Raghav Arora for giving me this opportunity to share my views and experience on the topic of RERA. I would also like to inform all the participants that we are also live on Facebook on the page of Lawyers Club India. And I would also want to inform all the participants that Lawyers Club India is coming up with amazing courses in the subjects of CPC and evidence, and the details for the same are available on the website of Lawyers Club India. Further, taking the topic, uh, allow me to share the screen, Ishita.
Yes, sir.
I can start away with the presentation.
We are good to go, sir.
Hi. So I hope that this is visible. Is the screen visible for everybody?
Yes, sir, it is visible.
Okay, great. Yeah. So talking about RERA, I'll start from the very introduction that, okay, there have been regulators in various fields. For example, TRI has been there, then competition, it has been there, but there was not a single regulator for the real estate industry per se. And then if we talk about the need of central regulation, you see that more people live in urban areas than in rural areas, with 55% of the world's population residing in urban areas in 2018. In 1950, 30% of the world's population was urban, and by 2050, 68% of the world's population is projected to be urban. By 2030, the world is projected to have 43 megacities, and most of them in developing regions. Then, see, in talking about the real estate industry in India, the real estate and housing sector was largely opaque, with consumers often unable to procure complete information on or enforce accountability against the builders and developers in the absence of effective regulation. And then talking about the biggest fallouts affecting the sectors, they were majorly the delay in project completion, which possibly many people have actually shared their experiences over the blogs. Then diversion of funds collected from buyers. Then one-sided contracts in the absence of adequate supply, failing to abide by the contractual commitments by both the developers and the buyers, constraints in financing and investment options available to the sector, thereby affecting its long-term growth. And the absence of pan-India regulation had also added to this. So now you see whatever lacunas have been there in the sector. For instance, delay in project completion, that has been very well regulated by RERA, because once RERA has come into the picture, as soon as there is a RERA registration, you have to give by way of an affidavit as to when the possession shall be completed. And all these details are not only uploaded on the website of the promoter, but also on the website of the respective state of RERAs. Then talking about diversion of funds collected by the buyers, now there has to be an escrow account wherein 70% of the amounts so collected by the buyers has to be deposited in that account, and there is a complete transparency with respect to RERA. With RERA, all the promoters have to give a quarterly update in which they have to show that how much amount has been uh, taken by the allottees and the buyers and how they are spending. So now the chances of misappropriation of funds is not there, because the situation is no more opaque. Then talking about the one-sided contracts, now see, after Neil Kamal judgment coming into picture, now RERA authorities pan India are of the view that, okay, there are many clauses in the builder buyer agreement or the agreement for sale which are one-sided. The most common of them is being the interest point, wherein if there is a delay on part of the allottee to pay the payments, the interest which the builders charge is huge. Whereas if the delay is on the builder part, then the interest amount is quite less. So RERA has given a prescribed rate of interest, which is different from every state, from state to state. But that prescribed rate of interest applies whether it be the delay in payment from the part of allotee or whether it be the delay in possession from the part of the promoter. So these are a few things which has made things very transparent, and people now can actually come up and invest being RERA into the picture. Then this is a very evident case of Belair Owners Association versus DLF Limited, wherein the Apex Code had held that in the absence of any single sectoral regulator to regulate the real estate sector in totality, so as to ensure adoption of transparent and ethical business practices and to protect the consumers, has only made the situation in real estate sector worse. So this was a case which came long back, and obviously RERA has its own evolution. Before going to the evolution, we'll just have a glimpse of the act. The Act provides for prevention, compensation, punishment, and specific relief. And this is a sector specific regulatory act intended to regulate the business of sale and purchase of real estate properties. That is the relation or contractual obligation between the allotee and the promoter. So, majorly, RERA has defined three people or three things. So, it is allotee, promoter, and real estate agent. So, within the definition of allotee comes the investor also, because if so Consumer Protection Act was in place, but then in the definition of consumer, an investor couldn't have come, whereas in the definition of allotee everybody is included who has taken a property. So this has a larger scope. Then the act aimed at addressing the concerns of buyers and the promoter in the sector. It is both a preventive and curative legislation with powers to enforce specific performance based on contractual obligations, and then to balance the interest of consumers and developers and impose clear responsibilities on both. I often hear from people who say that, okay, this act is inclined towards the allottees, or some say it is inclined towards the builders. I would personally say that, in my opinion, the act is not at all biased. It is a very fair legislation. I think the need to educate people, like by the platform of Lawyers Club India, the need to educate people about what are the rights and duties, rights and obligations of both the allottees, promoters, real estate agents. So the awareness is something which is needed. Then RERA fills the existing gap between the development of municipal laws and Apartment Ownership Act, etc. It provides for fast-track adjudication mechanism, including imposition of penalty, interest, and compensation for contravention on all the parties, promoter, buyer, real estate agents involved in the transaction. So here I would like to pause and tell you that what all RERA consists of. RERA consists of the Real Estate Regulatory Authority, then an adjudicating officer, then the appellate tribunal. So RERA for appeal has a separate tribunal, the RERA Real Estate Regulatory Appellate Tribunal. So if you see in hierarchy, it is complete in itself. And then talking about it being fast track adjudicating mechanism, the limitation period for them to dispose of the matters may be before the authority for interest and delivery of possession or registration, or for adjudicating officer, the case could be for compensation, for appellate could be they are the appeals. So for all of this, the time period laid down under the statute is 60 days. So 60 days is quite a fast track adjudicating mechanism, so provided by the Real Estate Regulatory Act. And then if we trace the evolution of the act, I would say that the act, when it came in 2016, though it did not come, the whole of the sections did not come in 2016. But if we try to trace that, how has the evolution been? So it started in May 2008, wherein the concept paper on regulation of real estate and model law for legislation by states and UTs were taken. And then in January 2019, the National Conference of Ministers of Housing, Urban Development proposed a law for real estate sector, followed by 2009, a model act for real estate. And then in July 2011, subsequent consultations by central government took place to enact a central law for the real estate sector, followed by 2013, wherein Union Cabinet approved the real estate bill. August 2013, real estate bill was introduced in Rajya Sabha and was referred to standing committee, which was laid on tables of both the houses. And then the report of standing committee came in February 2014. 2015 February, Attorney General upheld the validity of central legislation, and so on and so forth. Finally, if we see then on 10th March 2016, the Real Estate Regulation Development Bill was passed by Rajya Sabha. 15th March, Lok Sabha passed the bill. 25th March 16, President gives assent to the bill. 15th April 2016, 59 sections of the Act were notified, making them effective from May 1st, 2016. And then October 28, 2016, real estate removal of difficulties order came into picture. And finally, on 1st of May 2017, the new era began for the development of real estate sector with the confidence in investors and the public. This act has been put in operation just like Motor Vehicles Act, etc., wherein pursuant to the central government. So this RERA Act is a central legislation, whereas the rules from state to state differ. And according to every state government and union territory, they're required to promulgate their own rules, which would be based on the lines of the central act so passed. And then there were deadlines set up for the authorities to be set up in various states. What are the objects and reasons for the act? To ensure accountability towards the allottees and to protect their interests, infuse transparency, ensure fair play, and reduce frauds and delays. So, at first, there are many provisions which are explicitly mentioned in the Act which were not present in any other Act. And RERA, if something is actually not present in the statute, also because looking at the intent of the legislations, authorities do take cognizance and they adjudicate on the things which are really related to the real estate disputes. But even if it is not mentioned per se in the act, they take cognizance and decide the matter in the interest of public and principles of natural justice. And to introduce professionalism and pan-India standardization, to establish symmetry of information between the promoter and allottee. So as I said, that all the information is very well published on the websites of RERA. You can just search on the websites of that state RERA about a project, and you'll get to know about the RERA registration number, the deadline by which the promoter says will be handing over the possession. You can also search for the agents who are registered so that transparency is maintained. And you can actually check on the website of RERA that, okay, this is a registered agent. And for registering the agent also, there is a proper process which has to be followed. Then it has been imposing certain responsibilities on both promoter and allottees. So here the rights and duties go hand in hand. For instance, if the promoter is duty bound to get an association of allottees registered, similarly, it is the responsibility on the part of allottees to participate in formation of such association of allottees. Giving another example, registration of conveyance deed. So the promoter is under obligation to get the conveyance deed registered, but so is the obligation to the allottee to participate in the conveyance deed. It shouldn't be the case that they evade their obligation in order to evade the responsibility of paying the statutory charges of registration of conveyance deed. So RERA is imposing responsibilities on both the promoters and allottees. Then it establishes regulatory oversight mechanism to enforce contracts. So per se, the agreement for sale or the builder-buyer agreement has to be a registered one. But even if it is not a registered one, but duly executed by the sign and stamp of the builders, and then similarly sign of the allottee is there, then the authorities do take cognizance and adjudicate upon the matter. Then it establishes fast-track dispute resolution mechanism, and it promotes good governance in the sector, which in turn would create investor confidence. The Act mandates registration of real estate projects which are for more than 500 square meters and more than 8 units. So if there is any piece of land on which somebody wants to construct anything, may it be for residential or commercial purposes, there has to be a mandatory RERA registration. And there is no sale of real estate project or unit without prior registration of the authority, with the authority. So it is not just about selling, it is also about advertising. Until you have a RERA registration number with you, you cannot advertise the project. there are heavy penalties once if somebody is actually advertising the project without RERA registration. Then in this evident case of Punjab Appellate Tribunal, appeal number 49 of 2018, the project in dispute was not registered under the Act, and however, a dispute arose between the Resident Welfare Association and the appellant builder in relation to handing over the community hall, that is the common amenities which one has to give with the project when if allottees are given the possession, and so is the association of allottees to be given the common area. May it be the clubs, may it be the swimming pool, may it be community halls like this in this particular evident matter. So herein, it was held that RERA has jurisdiction to adjudicate complaints in relation to projects which have not been registered by promoters thereof. Furthermore, complaint number 3 of 2017, titled as Bikramjit Singh versus State of Punjab, it was held that the complaints against promoter in relation to projects that are not registered are not maintainable is declared as no longer good law. As I said, that RERA authorities have been taking cognizance in interest of principles of natural justice, and by looking into the intent of the very legislature for bringing this act into picture. Then moving on to the functions and duties of the promoters. The Act mandates specific duties and functions of the promoters. The first and foremost being the disclosure of all relevant information pertaining to the real estate project. Every promoter and agent is under obligation by virtue of Section 4, Subclause 2, to provide details including that of the promoter, project, layout plan, plan of development works, land status, carpet area, and number of apartments booked, status of statutory approvals and disclosure of performer agreements, names and addresses of the real estate agents, contractors, architects, structural engineer, etc. So you see, more or less everything is covered by the virtue of this section to be disclosed to the public, that okay, if if it is the Directorate of Town Country Planning who's giving the license, the municipal corporation, the height clearance from the Airports Authority India, environment clearance, all such clearances have to be there, the layout plans have to be there. And then if you see the model agreement for sale as given by RERA, it talks about that the sale has to be as per the carpet area and not as per the built up area or super area. This is another thing which came up with RERA. So people who are entering into agreement for sale, this is an advice that before entering into agreement for sale, you need to scrutinize the agreement well, because obviously the principle of caveat emptor is there, and being a buyer, you should be aware of your rights, and so you should always check the agreement for sale. And then if so, in agreement for sale, they are declaring their land to be free from all encumbrances, and all these things have to be declared before getting their RERA registration. And then similarly, everything has to be updated on the portal of RERA and made transparent to the public through the portal of RERA, as well as their own websites and other things. So within its ambit, it has brought that before advertising, all such things have to be in place for people to know. Further, obligations regarding veracity of advertisement or prospectus. No person should be at loss who advances or deposits on the basis of information contained in the notice, advertisement or prospectus, or on the basis of any model apartment, plot or building. If any person is harmed by the same and wants to withdraw his allotment, he shall get his entire investment along with interest as such rate as may be prescribed, and the compensation in the manner provided under this Act. So this is by the virtue of Section 12 enumerated in the Act, that first, you cannot advertise by way of brochure, hoarding, online advertisement, or through brokers, anything which is not in place. So, and if anybody is harmed through the false advertisement of the builder, then they have all the rights to withdraw from the project, and they will be given the prescribed rate of interest. What the prescribed rate of interest is for the layman, I'll tell, it is the marginal cost of lending rate as per the State Bank of India, and plus 1% in Haryana, 1% in Uttar Pradesh and 2% in Haryana. And similarly, it differs from state to state. Then in this evident case of RERA versus Sai Estate Consultant Chamber, it was held that the respondent agent cannot advertise any project for marketing, booking and selling, or offer for sale or inviting persons for purchase of any building apartment which is not registered under MahaRERA. As I said, that the real estate agents and brokers are also defined under the Act, and it is very well regulated by the Act that there is nothing which they can market, sell, book, or advertise without being registered by the Real Estate Regulatory Authority. And if done so, then there are going to be penalties levied on them. Then, in this evident case of Nitya Buksani and others versus Real Gem Buildtech Private Limited, RERA Maharashtra, there was no agreement for sale between the parties, and the complainant claimed there to be misrepresentation and claimed for refund and interest as the relief being sought. Authority held that the complaint is a premature one because the due date of possession is not there. And although the complainant was not granted refund and interest, but two options were given, which are usually given depending on if the complainants want to continue with the project or not. It was held in this case that the complainants intend to continue in the project, and the parties were directed to further execute and register the agreement for sale as per the provisions of Section 13 of RERA and the rules and regulations made thereunder within 30 days of this order. Alternately, in the case complainants intend to withdraw from the said project, then such withdrawal shall be guided by the terms and conditions of the application form. At this stage, the grounds of seeking refund stated by the complainants are premature, as the date of possession as allegedly agreed between the parties is yet to arrive. So usually what is seen is that, okay, what is the due date of possession? Has it passed by or not? If it is passed by, then what relief do you seek? What is the construction status of the project? So in Nilkamal judgment by the Bombay High Court, it has been said that, okay, if the project is near to completion, then refund be not be given, because otherwise it is going to bring economic slowdown and everything. So it has to be seen for the fair play. What is the status of the project? If the project is lacking far behind, then the allottee has the right to take refund with the prescribed rate of interest. And in order to ascertain that the due date of possession has to be there as per the agreed builder-buyer agreement. But in this evident case, there was no builder-buyer agreement, and which is a mandate by Section 13 of the Act to be in place. Then what is agreement for sale and what RERA says about it? Until such agreement is entered into, the promoter cannot ask for a cost of more than 10% of the total cost of that unit so booked. So earlier the practice has been that people have been taking much more than 10% from the allottees at the time of booking or otherwise before executing agreement for sale. Why agreement for sale is actually important is because usually it is written that from the date of signing of this agreement, the possession shall be given in these many months. So if the builder is not signing the agreement for sale for months and months, then your date starts from the date of execution of agreement, whereas you are paying previously. So if there is a delay, then you are bound to get interest from the delay period which has happened prior to agreement for sale also. So this is a very vast provision, which is a very nice provision came up through the RERA that, okay, you can only ask for less than 10% before entering into agreement for sale. And before asking for more than 10%, there has to be an agreement for sale in picture. Now, in this evident case of complaint number 411 of 2018 of Haryana Gurugram bench, the builder had sent the duplicate copies of the BBA, which were one-sided, and the allottee did not execute the same and requested the same to be amended. Yet no agreement was executed and the complaint was premature. The respondent had violated the terms and conditions laid down in the application form. The complainant was entitled to surrender the booking and get the amount back after deducting rupees 25,000 as per clause so and so of the policy. Then in another evident case of complaint number 55510 of MahaRERA, the complainants booked their allotments and executed agreements, but the project was delayed because of one of the circulars is so issued by the Maharashtra Private Forest Acquisition Act. But the case was that the dispute was resolved by Honorable Supreme Court in 2016. and complainants prayed for delivery along with interest. It was held that due to lack of mention of due date of possession was the sheer violation of MOFA, and this does not entitle the promoter to take indefinite time to complete the project. The authority also observed that during the period of delay between 2006 and 2014, the respondent could have refunded allottees their money and compensation, or could have given the allotment, but he instead chose to retain the money. Hence, the builder was directed to pay the interest. Then, in another evident case, which talks about the forfeiture of booking amount in the case of DLF Limited versus Bhagwati Narula, this was a revision petition 3860 of 2014, which came up from the NCDRC, wherein there was an agreement for forfeiting more than 10% of the sale price, and it was held to be invalid. And the findings were that earnest money is said to be the only amount that is paid at the time of concluding the contract. Thus, amount beyond 10% cannot be forfeited. And if done so, that would be unreasonable. And it is a well settled principle that any clause in derogation to the said law shall not be valid in law. Thus, it has to be noted that the respondent cannot forfeit more than 10% of the earnest money. And this has been treated as a benchmark, as a landmark judgment while we plead in the RERA courts. Then the next is complaint number 2212 of 2018, which the discussion is on the paragraph 181 of the Neel Kamal Realtors versus Union of India, which I have previously also quoted, though this is another aspect to it. So it has been held in this judgment that these builder-buyer agreements are invariably one-sided standard format agreements, and one has no option but to sign on the dotted lines. So there has not been many such judgments where both the parties are private parties, and it has been held that these contracts are one-sided contracts, because as per the general law of contract, when a contract is signed, then you are bound by that contract. But this judgment turned to be a game changer for RERA, and it has been held that there are unjust clauses on delayed delivery, time for conveyance to the society, obligations to obtain occupancy, completion certificate, etc. And individual purchasers had no scope or power to negotiate and to accept these one-sided agreements. So hence, by virtue of this precedent, RERA authorities do very well adjudicate on the unjust clauses so written by the builders many a times. Then there is another very important provision of RERA, which says that allotment should be free of structural defects and should be in the accordance of sanctioned plan. According to section 14 subclause 2, the builder shall not make any additions and alterations in the sanctioned plans, layout plans and specifications, and the nature of fixtures, fittings, amenities without the consent of the allottees. However, promoter may make such minor additions or alterations as may be required by the allottee, or such minor changes or alterations as may be necessary due to architectural or structural reasons, duly recommended and verified by an authorized architect or engineer after proper declaration and intimation to the allottee. For any other alteration, written consent of at least 2/3 of the allottees is required. And if any structural defect is brought to the notice of the builder within 5 years from the date of handing over possession, it shall be the duty of the promoter to rectify such defects without further charge within 30 days. So as per this provision, there shouldn't be any structural defects. Number one, if there are any. So if it is a project which is not of ongoing nature, because in order to go to RERA, the mandate is that the project be one of ongoing nature, so that on the date of inception of the authority being set up, there is no OCCC in place. But by virtue of this provision, if OCCC was in place and there was no RERA registration required, the allottee has taken possession, and it turns out to be that there are structural defects in the project because they are not actually visible to the naked eye of a layman. So if there are defects within a period of 5 years, anybody, any allottee can approach the courts of RERA, knock the doors of RERA, and show such defects, and such defects shall be cured by the promoters free of cost, or there would be proper recourse given to them. then only in the case where it is a duly recommended thing by the architect engineer, then minor changes can be done from sanction plan, otherwise not. Because if you are actually choosing a sanction plan, and if there are additions, you might have to pay for it. If there are deductions, you might not be willing to take the unit. So, and talking about the written consent of at least two-thirds of allotee, how is this two-thirds of allotee is going to be computed? If I have 10 units, say, in my name or in the names of my relatives, then it is going to constitute one vote for the computation of such consent of two-thirds of allottees, so required. Then coming to the RERA complaint number 113 of 2018, where with respect to the increase in super area, it was held that in the present case, the percentage increase was as per the agreement. Hence, the allottee can be charged for the same. However, if the enhancement in super area is found not to be in the accordance with the approved plans, the respondent will not be entitled to charge for the same. And with respect to the cost escalation, it was observed that it is fair and just that the cost escalation should be calculated only from the date of executing of the flat buyer agreement up to the deemed date of delivery of possession after the grace period. Then adherence to the approved plans and project specification is also very important in this evident complaint number 684 of 2018. There was a cost of steel staircase which was levied on each unit, and the cost is much less than the cost of construction of carpet area. And it appeared that unjustly a steel staircase, which is meant to be a fire escape facility, is allowed to be charged at the same rates that of carpet area. The authority considers it fair and just to order the actual cost of the steel staircase plus 15% profit thereon shall be proportionately divided amongst all the residents of the buildings. Thus, the proportionate actual cost of steel staircase plus 15% profit only shall be charged from the complainants. Then in complaint number 607 of 2018, the issue has been that the respondent builder is charging the complaint for an increased super area that has been mentioned in the agreement. It was assumed that the plans were approved, but it was revealed later that approval of the plans was attained at a later date. It was held that the agreement made between the parties in regard to these facilities is rather vague. The respondent should have precisely defined the area to be calculated under such facilities and also the rates chargeable for the same. Since costing of these facilities has not been defined properly and unambiguously, they now have to be interpreted in a reasonable manner. Apart from all of this, a very often query which I get is with regards to maintenance of separate bank account and transparency. So the biggest challenges has been the same, that the real estate sector was something wherein a lot of money has been received from the allottees, and which there was misappropriation of funds, and which in turn led to the project delays and such other things. So in a very famous case of RERA Gurugram, Greenopolis Welfare Association versus Oris Infrastructure, it was held that the rights of allottees in the project need to be protected by ensuring that the project receivables to be received by the promoters from their customers, as well as the amounts received from sale of unsold inventory, are only utilized for the construction or completion of the said project and for payment of statutory dues and for no other purpose. Then maintenance. It is the duty of the promoter to maintain the essential services and pay for outings till delivery of possession. The allottee is duty bound to pay for maintenance charges after delivery of possession once handed over to the RWA. The frequency of collecting the maintenance charges is decided by it. In a recent judgment of October 2020, it was clear that the due maintenance of real estate project can be carried out only if the allottees thereof pay the charges. The High Court of Punjab and Haryana in Raghbir Singh Manak versus State of Punjab held that the allottees are bound to pay the maintenance charges. It is not the case that till indefinite times promoter is bound to pay the maintenance, though promoters are bound to maintain the project until it is handed over to the association of allottees. Then, in the evident case of Punjab RERA Manu RR 0590 of 2019, it was held that allotee is liable to pay maintenance from the date of taking over of possession. And then, similarly, in one of the cases of Haryana RERA, it was clarified that the maintenance charges so taken care of by the promoters. If a promoter is maintaining even after handing over the possession to association of allottees, or even if it is a third party which is hired through the promoter builder, the maintenance charges should not be levied with profit motive. Maintenance charges means that the payment enough to satisfy and manage and maintain the colony. As far as possible, the maintenance charges must be levied on no profit, no loss basis, and annual submission of accounts should be mandatory. So whatever amounts are taken from the allottees for the purpose of maintenance of the premises should be made transparently available to the allottees, that how that amount has been used for maintenance, and it should be done with no profit motive. Then the most important aspect of RERA and these builder-buyer disputes is timely delivery of possession. According to section 18 subclause 1, the date of delivery of possession is determined from the agreement for sale entered into between the builder and the buyer. If the possession is not given until the set due date, including the grace period, the allottee can file a complaint. In cases of delay in delivering of possession, the allottee cannot be expected to wait indefinitely, as was held in the Fortune Infrastructure versus Trevor de Lima, and which was reiterated further in Pioneer Urban Land Infrastructure versus Govindan Raghavan, 2019 SCC 725. A person cannot be made to wait indefinitely for possession of the flat allotted to him and is entitled to seek refund of the amount so paid by him along with compensation. In this evident case of Madhu Astana and Varun Astana versus MAPSCO, the delivery of possession was delayed for around 2 years. The authority was of the view that the promoter has failed to fulfill his obligation as specified in 11.4A of the Act, and the promoter is liable under Section 18.1 to pay prescribed rate of interest, which was then 10.45. It depends on the date of order, what is the current lending rate of SBI, plus 2% for Haryana, and so was the decision by Haryana RERA Gurugram. Then wrongful cancellation. This is also a dispute which I come across very often. So section 11 subclause 5 specifically lays down that the cancellation of allotment in a project can only be done as per the terms and conditions of the agreement for sale. If the promoter wrongfully cancels the allotment, the allottee can file a complaint. So in case the allotment is cancelled, that okay, he's getting a better price, a better buyer, or there are any such change in circumstances, then it is totally arbitrary and one-sided, and a complaint can be filed to RERA. Only in terms of agreement for sale, if there is a lot of delay in payment from allottee's side, and that is mentioned in the agreement for sale, and it is a consistent non-payment, such things can actually allow the promoter to cancel the unit. Otherwise, arbitrary cancellation is a violation of the Act. In this evident complaint number of Maharera, the case has been that the promoter took a unilateral decision to extend the date of delivery, and there was no consent by the allottees, but it was held that the said agreement, the liability to pay the interest would be that of the borrower, and the promoter shall be absolved. In this concept, one has to keep in mind that when the parties entered into the agreement, it was anticipated that by August 2016, the possession of the flat would be delivered, and therefore the agreement was executed on its basis. So if unilaterally they are extending the date of delivery, it was the contention of the promoter that the allottee did not object to such extension, and Maharera found no reasonable proof of the same, that there was no objection of the allottee, because unilateral extension was there, the allottee wasn't even aware. So it was held that the amount paid by the allottee be refunded. Then this is an unbiased legislation. So, Realtors versus Union of India, as I had spoken about this, that this legislation is unbiased and is a law for regulation and development of the real estate sector. And it takes care of the builder's perspective as well. Complaint number 78796 talks about the builder's perspective. Here, the builder complainant completed the project and got the OCCC, and the respondent allottee failed to pay. So it was held that the complainant builder can cancel the allotment. Then registration of real estate agents. It provides for mandatory registration of real estate agents to facilitate the sale of any real estate project with the real estate regulatory authority. Upon registration, the real estate agent is required to be provided with a unique registration number, which shall be quoted by him in every sale so facilitated by him. What are the functions of real estate agents as laid down by the Act? They are to maintain and preserve the books of accounts, records, and documents. And the obligations not only they are not to involve in any unfair trade practices through misrepresentation, obligation to facilitate the possession of documents to allottees as entitled at the time of booking, and to comply with such other functions as specified by rules made in that regard. Then establishment of real estate regulatory authority. It is imposed on the appropriate government to establish one of the regulatory authorities with specified functions, powers, and responsibilities to exercise oversight of real estate transactions, to appoint adjudicating officers to settle disputes between the parties, and to impose penalty in case of contravention within 1 year of law coming into force. And so forth are the functions of the regulatory authority. And the powers of the regulatory authority are to call for information and to conduct investigations, to issue directions to promoters, allottees, and agents for discharging their functions, power to impose penalty, which is as high as 5% in authority and 10% in appellate for non-abiding by the orders of the cost, of the total cost. And then there is power to make reference to the Competition Commission of India. And I've already elaborated upon the fast track dispute settlement mechanism. Then establishment of real estate appellate tribunal is there to decide the appeals so coming from the decisions made by the adjudicating officer or the real estate regulatory authority. And then only if somebody has gone in appeal to the real estate appellate tribunal, then they can go to High Court. Nobody can directly go to High Court from an order coming from the real estate regulatory authority. Then there are punitive provisions and penalties for non-compliance with the provisions made be for non-registration. The authority takes cognizance, suo motu cognizance of the projects which are not registered or for whom quarterly compliances are not there. Then it talks about the civil court jurisdiction being barred. It bars the jurisdiction of civil courts to entertain any suit or proceeding in respect of any matter which is the authority or the adjudicating officer or appellate tribunal is empowered in order to avoid forum shopping. There have been instances where people have gone to High Court and High Court has said that, okay, RERA is in picture, you better go to RERA first. Talking about which forum to go to, can people still be going to consumer forums? Then RERA does not bar the jurisdiction of consumer forums. It only provides for an option to the aggrieved party to withdraw his complaint from the consumer forum and then coming to RERA. Thus, this does not preclude the aggrieved from approaching the consumer forums as well. And then it has been upheld in other cases also. So there has been a case in September 2019, M3M matter, wherein it was held by the Delhi High Court that they can go to consumer forum or RERA. The option is open to them. It is not in derogation, but in addition, this act. So this was reiterated. Then the act also provides for establishment of Central Advisory Council to be chaired by the Minister to the Government of India in charge of Ministry of Central Government dealing with housing, consisting of members from the concerned central ministries, implementation of the law, to make recommendations on major questions of policy, protection of consumer interest, to foster growth and development of the real estate sector. and functions and powers of the state union governments, keeping in mind the spirit of federalism. Wide powers have been given to the state and union territories for effective implementation of the provisions of the Act. Power to supersede authority if authority fails to discharge its functions, power to issue direction to the authority, power to make rules to carry out purposes of the Act. So here the case has also been that, if the promoter fails to complete a project, RERA is going to give that opportunity first to the Association of Allottees to complete the project. And if by vote and by choice, Association of Allottees say we don't want to complete the project, then RERA, in consultation with the appropriate state government, is going to come up with something in order to complete the project and give the allottees the unit which they had booked. What are the benefits and advantages of the said act? It is expected to induct professionalism and standardization in the sector, thus paving way for accelerated growth and investment in long run. This law is expected to ensure consumer protection, transparency, and fair and ethical business practices in matters relating to sale and purchase of properties in the real estate sector. The Act is aimed at protecting the interest of ordinary people and home buyers across the country and ensuring the balance of interest. Then standardization is there. For instance, I just said carpet area is something which is there mentioned. And then there are other insurances and approvals and everything, and specific performances there. It aims to ensure consumer protection by making it mandatory for promoters to register the project above a specified threshold, so mentioned by me in the starting of the presentation. Then it promotes transparency and fair and ethical business practices relating to transactions through disclosure of project details and contractual obligation vis-a-vis the project and the buyer, thereby promoting the informed choice for the buyers. This substantially reduces the power asymmetry prevalent in the real estate transactions. And most important is to enforce accountability. It infuses speedy and specialized adjudication mechanisms to settle disputes between the promoter, buyer, and the real estate agents, thereby declogging the civil courts and consumer forums from the disputes of real estate sector, which earlier used to go to them. And here I end my presentation. Now we are open to a question answer session for those people who were raising hands. Esheta?
So it was quite an informative session. Thank you so much for the presentation. We would like to move forward to the question and answer round now. The first question we have for you is, to what kind of projects is RERA applicable?
So it is applicable for any real estate project which is above 500 square meters and more than 8 units. As told at the very inception of the, it is not confined to residential only or commercial or anything. It could only be a plotted colony. Then also RERA registration is a mandate.
The next one we have for you is, which projects are exempted from registration? Like, do all projects have to be registered, or some would go without registration as well?
So all the projects for which OCCC has been received before the RERA authority being established in that particular state shall be exempt from registration.
And how long is this registration valid?
So this registration is valid so it is given in the RERA certificate. It is by way of affidavit that it is given that, okay, by X date they are going to give possession, and till X date the registration is valid, and then the extension if need be, or whatever the case, it depends from project to project.
Does the definition of promoter include all the promoters in case of joint development?
So if we see the definition part enumerated in the Act, it says that anybody who's bringing the project, or he is bringing the project through somebody else. So that includes within its ambits the landowner. That, okay, if a landowner is bringing the project through a developer who is developing with his expertise, that is included in the definition of promoter.
Can a promoter change the completion date for the ongoing project while registering for the project?
See, there can be extensions in the project due to force majeure clauses or such other aspects, but then that approval comes from the RERA authority only.
Okay. Is the insurance of the project compulsory under RERA? And sir, if yes, what are the provisions?
Yes, it is a mandate, and yes, so for insurance, the builder has to pay all the premiums and the project has to be duly insured. That is a mandate by RERA. So all the premiums will be paid till the project is so completed. So insurance is a mandate by the act.
What is the responsibility and liability of the promoter with reference to title of the land?
So, see, at the very inception, see, when the agreement for sale is entered into, or there are advertisements, they have to make it clear that the land title is free from all encumbrances and there is no dispute as to title. Any dispute, uh, there shouldn't be any case pending. Any dispute may it be religious, family, official, there shouldn't be any dispute. The title should be free from all encumbrances. Then only they can approach RERA, and such documents are given to RERA also at the time of registration.
What is an occupancy certificate and what is the difference between completion certificate and occupancy certificate? Like, are they the same or there is a difference?
It depends from state to state, and as the name suggests, completion certificate is when the project is complete, and occupancy is when it is habitable for the people who have booked their units.
Okay. What happens in the case of jurisdiction which does not provide for the occupancy certificate and the completion certificate as well?
So there are places wherein it is only one, like OCCC is one only. So it works, as I said, it depends from state to state.
Okay. If an ongoing project is registered under RERA, then will the act be applicable to the entire project or the parts sold after registration? Like suppose if I have occupancy certificate for 2 buildings and the third one is under construction, will the clients of the first 2 buildings be covered under this act?
See, registration can also be done in phases. If it is a project which is running into various phases, registration will be as per phases, and OC and CC will also be as per phases only. So if 2 buildings are complete and OC has been received, then people can move and then they're duty bound to get the registration of conveyance deed. Whereas for the project, if OC is not registered, then it is going to be deemed to be a different project with a different registration number. And so will be the obligations.
Okay. If due to changes in government policies, if any, the promoter is entitled to additional FSI or something like that, can the promoter build additional floors in a completed project or an ongoing project where initially those floors were not planned?
No, so that came within the ambit of what I explained, the sanction plans. So if it is something which is not in the sanction plan when the project was advertised, then they cannot actually do so. It has to be as per the sanction plans at the time of inception of the registration.
What are the obligations of the promoter as regard to transfer of property to a third party?
So there cannot be any third party interest and they cannot transfer the rights to any third party. And that can only be done again with the consent, written consent of 2/3 of the allottee.
Does the promoter need to maintain separate account for all his projects or can he maintain the account for one or more than one projects?
There has to be a separate bank account for every project, or if it is in phases, then for every phase also there has to be a separate bank account.
Can civil courts and consumer courts entertain disputes under this act?
Consumer forums can and civil courts cannot, as explained by me in the PPT.
Can a complainant approach both regulatory authority and the adjudicating officer, whosoever is in charge, and the consumer forum at the same time for the same case?
No, they cannot approach the consumer forum and RERA at the same time. They need to withdraw from consumer forum in order to come to RERA. And in RERA, they can approach both the authority and the adjudicating officer. So for adjudicating officer, they can go for compensation on various grounds. So if there is a delay in possession and they had been putting on rent, so for the rent for the period after the due date of possession till the date possession is given, the period for which they've been paying rent, if they want the compensation for the same, they can file a complaint in front of the adjudicating officer. Whereas for the interest on the delay possession and to ask for the possession, with the promised amenities, they can go to the real estate regulatory authority. So one can go to simultaneously to the authority and the adjudicating officer, but not to the consumer forum.
So there is a question from Subhash. A landowner entered into a sale cum development agreement with a builder which was not registered with RERA in August 2016. And the builder is supposed to hand over the landowner's share of flats on or before April 2017. The land area is 501 square meter, and number of units in the flat number of units of flats are 15. The builder has left the project unattended, but he sold 3 flats which were in his share. What is the resolution to the landowner?
So the landowner can, by virtue of, there must be a collaboration agreement, there must be a joint development agreement. Then we have to see if there is an arbitration clause. So I think the best way to handle a dispute between a landowner and the developer is by way of arbitration if such a clause is present in the agreement.
Okay. A question is asked by Nitin. As per section 18, subsection 1, a provision is if the allottee wishes to continue, interest shall be paid by the promoter for every month of delay till handing over of the possession. And if said possession is under section 2 interest definition, it would be clear that it is intended to be given every month of delay from agreed date of possession. What I have found that direction is such given that the said total interest is to be paid at the time of possession. How can such direction in conformity with aim and object of RERA?
So the orders are usually that the interest be paid, the interest so accumulated till the date of order be paid within 60 or 90 days of the order, and then till possession the interest shall be accrued, and that interest shall be paid at the time of possession. And usually what happens is it is settled at the time of possession against the statutory charges which the allottees have to be paying, or there are other settled and whatever dues, and then you can get your order executed as well.
Saurav is asking a question. How many extensions are allowed for completion of RERA project? His project was registered in December 2018, due date in RERA, which was first extended to December 2019, then to April 2020. Now with COVID period, it is extended to October 20. So for how many times can the extension be done before the completion of the project?
See, there is nothing as to the counts of extension. It is just that the extension should be taken on a reasonable delay. That okay, for X reasons there has been a delay. If due to some environmental new law came up, and due to that new law, adherence to that new law, that okay, NGT had passed some order that there is a halt in construction. So if there are unforeseen circumstances and the authority deems fit that okay, extension can be given, then only extension will be given, and there is no count as to how many times extension will be allowed. It all depends on circumstances and what are the reasons for which you are and for how much time now you give affidavit that in this period of time we'll be able to complete the project, how far the project has come, that how far what amount of time shall it be needed to complete the project, and what. So basically, are you just taking extension and not doing something, or you are doing, and the reasons are not just that okay, I am short of funds XYZ. So it depends on what reasons you are seeking extension, and then it is the discretion of RERA.
What are the promoter's obligation in regard to insurance?
So there has to be an insurance for the whole project for which the premiums are to be paid by the builder. Nothing of this sort can be charged by the allottees.
Yogesh is asking a question. Suppose a person or an allottee has filed an online complaint on RERA's website but has failed to submit hard copy of such complaint in the required format within the stipulated time period. And what is the remedy for that?
See, it depends from state to state. If it is, so for example, in Haryana, if you've generated an online complaint and within a month you've to give them the hard copies of the documents. If you fail to do so, you will have to again file a complaint with a fresh complaint number so coming by the authority. You will have to do it again.
Gunwant is asking a question. Can anyone, a single complainant who has filed a complaint case before the consumer court or before a state commission, having claim of an amount about rupees 20 lakhs or so, when it is a preliminary stage of hearing, calling upon the respondent or the builder and developers by way of mandatory notice of filing reply, then in between the period when reply is yet to be filed, this complaint case can be withdrawn under direction of the Honorable Court to file this complaint before RERA. However, with liberty to file in before the said forum of RERA, subject to court allows to withdraw the original complaint without prejudice of the rights of the complaint.
So when one withdraws the complaint, same relief, and for the same is moving to RERA. And it doesn't matter at which stage the complaint is in the consumer forum. It is in the stage of where the reply is expected from the promoter, or it is at a later stage. They can withdraw the complaint from consumer forum and file the complaint before RERA for a speedy redressal, probably.
A question from Subhash, another one. A landowner has entered into a sale. There is another question. A landowner has entered into a sale cum development agreement where he wasn't registered under RERA in August 2016. Then, as per the agreement, the builder was supposed to hand over the flats by 2017 April. The builder is not progressing with the project. He has sold 3 flats which were in his share. And land qualifiers for RERA regulation, that is, it is about 500 square meters and 8 units of apartment. What is the recourse the landowner has in this regard?
So it depends on what are the rights and obligations as by the collaborative agreement or joint development agreement. So whatever has to be done, I mean, the landowner will not be made responsible to the obligations of the part of the share which is so decided by the joint development agreement coming into the share of the developer. The landowner will only be responsible for the part of his share. So again, it can only be specifically answered by looking at the joint development agreement or the collaboration agreement.
And what is the time limit for obtaining conveyance deed?
Register the conveyance deed within 2 months of OC coming into picture.
Ideally, when shall be the agreement entered into between the allottee and the promoter? If the allottee needs to file a complaint, that agreement has not been entered into, and when shall the tribunal entertain it?
So the answers to this question were there in the PPT, that if there is no agreement for sale, the authority do order that in pursuance of section 13 an agreement for sale be entered into. And if payments are made prior to filing of agreement for sale, it can be so contested that there has been a delay on the part of which party and for what reasons, and compensation can be taken for the amount of the amount which is so paid before the agreement for sale coming into picture.
Nitin is asking why every month interest is not paid and it is made to be paid on possession despite clear provision of section 18 subsection 1 and authority is administrative tribunal without any inherent power. How such order is maintainable, and don't you think it is ultra vires to provision of RERA?
See, I think so. These matters are usually settled also, wherein the promoters do pay a cumulative amount, and it is easier. Otherwise, if the allottee seeks to have an interest per month of delay, they can have so. But because there are other charges which are also levied on the part of allottee, so hence it is kept that at the time of possession, the settlement will be done. Whatever charges have to be taken by the allottee shall be waived off, and whatever the balance amount is shall be paid. So that is how it works in practicality, and so are the orders.
There is a question from Drupad that if the promoter and allottee, they are the same person, that is, it is a self-building, it is a self-owned house, then is the registration compulsory under RERA?
See, if it is not something which they are advertising and selling off, then it is not then it is not mandatory to be registered.
Okay. We have another question. Why was section 92 repealing the Maharashtra Housing Regulation and Development Act 2020 provided under this act? Maharashtra Regulation Act
In
was
order so that there is no discrepancy, that which act has to be followed and which provision has to be followed and how the complaints are to be made. To make it a clear position, it was mentioned that okay, this is repealed by virtue of this section.
Oh, okay. And how is RERA helpful to common man right now? Like after all these provisions and the COVID-19 scenario here we are facing, how will it be helpful after COVID-19? And according to you, what more amendments should be made to the act?
See, COVID-19, there has been extension to the projects which are running out of time. There has been an implied extension given to them for 6 months. So that is a relief to the promoters. Talking about allottees, the interest, if there was an interest accrued by them, so the authorities are usually ordering that there will be no interest accrued for this 6 months of period of COVID. But for the obligations and for the rights which accrued much previous to the COVID-19, they will be getting interest for all of that period and their rights are untouched. Only for the period of this 6 months, promoters are given an extension of 6 months to construct, and this 6 months period is excluded by the authorities often to pay the interest of delay. Otherwise, everything, if the breach is priorly and the rights which have arisen stand still. I think there should have been a definition of banker also in the act, because many a times there are cases wherein there are tripartite agreements, wherein there is allottee, promoter, and the banker. So the RERA authorities do not actually give directions against the bank because it is not included in the act per se. Though they say that the bank shall be settling the thing with the builder and so on, but still, I think to make it more explicit and clear, there should be the definition of bank, because in real estate transactions there are tripartite agreements with bank being a party, and then in collusion of builder and bank, there are many times that the allottees are also frauded. They are private institutions with arbitrary clauses in their agreement. So I think bank should be made a necessary party, and the definition of banker should be there. And similarly, I think there should be a limitation period once a recovery certificate is issued after execution for X amount which is due to the allottee. So there should be a limitation that within this amount, the recovery has to be made as land areas or whatever. So limitation should be there for, I think all the questions have been addressed. So further, if there are any questions, people can reach out to me on LinkedIn or wherever possible. They can reach out to me, and on this slide it's my email ID and number also given. For any queries which are left out to be answered, they can always reach out to me by this, and such information can the same shall also be uploaded on YouTube of the Lawyers Club India. And I must again thank Lawyers Club for this, and should also be updated with all the webinars which are coming through Lawyers Club India, and the courses for law students. They are really amazing. Thank you once again, Lawyers Club India. Thank you, Esheta, for moderating this beautiful session.
Thank you so much, sir, for your valuable time and enlightening us on this wonderful topic. And I would also like to thank all the participants for coming up with such great questions and making it a wonderful session. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
If someone is if some questions are left to be answered, you can always address us on Facebook and can be mailed to sir as well. Thank you so much, everyone.
That's it.